Freedom Seekers!
Okay, let's go.
Despite an origin of the infamous Nelson Mandela and the location of the previous Soccer World Cup, did you know that South Africa had been a victim of previous racial and economic segregation as a result of a previous apartheid? The South African apartheid, which is a system of racial segregation enforced through the legislation of the National Party within the South African government from 1948 to 1994, under which the rights of the majority of native black inhabitants of South Africa were neglected while the white supremacy was maintained. The racial segregation inflicted due to the apartheid had initially begun in colonial times, specifically under that of British and Dutch colonization within the 17th century. Initially, however, the goal of the apartheid was to maintain white domination while maintaining racial segregation. Procedures of the apartheid included the creation of 4 racial groups. There were the native white, colored, and Asians, of which citizens were classified into and divided into the specific areas designated for each classification, resulting in an event segregation of each racial group. The influence of this segregation is evident within most aspects of social life, governing the prohibition of marriage between blacks and whites, as well as the segregation of white-only jobs. The end of the apartheid had dominantly been a result of external pressure, especially from Western nations. Although the political factors of the democratic revolution were fulfilled, the promise of the revolution that overthrew the previous racial system of legalized segregation and oppression had not been completely overthrown, as expressed by economic and social inequalities that remain on post-apartheid. Despite the supposed success of the end of apartheid due to external pressure, unresolved issues remain evident within most social and economic aspects. For example, primarily South Africa's unemployment rate increased from about 7% in the 1970s to 13% in the mid-1990s and 25% in the late 2000s. The current high levels of unemployment, largely a post-apartheid phenomenon that essentially increased. Reforms of the democratic revolution regarding the assimilation of the different racial groups with South Africa had been a motivating aspect of the revolution itself, although remains currently problematic as that of the increasing unemployment rate. One facet implemented throughout the apartheid included the separation and distribution of different racial groups throughout designated areas within South Africa. The travel throughout which remains entirely subject to the development of infrastructure that would further enable the migration and cultural diffusion of these groups. Throughout each territory, specifically, the challenge regarding the development of infrastructure consists of numerous consequences, one of which includes the inability of individuals from each ethnic group to travel from each individual district, preventing the cultural distribution that had been one of the single inducements for the end and resolvement of the apartheid.
One of the single forms of racial segregation expressed throughout the South African apartheid included the distinguishment of African students from that of whites, essentially providing whites with a better education and therefore ability to maintain certain jobs within the required certain educational standards that those of African students were never provided with. An essential promise of the democracy included the advancement of education provided to Africans within the origin, resulting in the distribution of equal education. Currently, however, nearly all white kids get to go through the matric, and some 60% go on to tertiary school, while only 50% of black kids get through the matric and 12% to the university, evidently portraying the continuation of an essential white supremacy in which whites within South Africa are receiving either and or better education than those of South Africans, resulting in an educational imbalance that will further influence an unemployment imbalance between these two races. The economic and social complications are direct results of the South Africans' inability to resolve previous characteristics of the apartheid. However, may consist of possible solutions that will evidently fulfill the promise regarding the increase in interaction, advancement in economy, and education. The greater establishments and focus upon infrastructure will then enable the ability to travel throughout each region consisting of the different ethnic groups, enabling the desired cultural diffusion. The government's increased emphasis on education, particularly to the adolescent population, will result in a decrease in unemployment, as there will be an increase in number of individuals that consists of the educational expertise of most jobs within South Africa, enabling their overall involvement that will then stimulate the development of the population as a result of an increase in labor.